Okay friends, it's time to get started on our job. To access the thermostat, it's going to be located right under here. It's going to be very easy to get to once we go ahead and remove the cover. To do that, let's go ahead and remove this fill neck. Grab this cover, lift it straight up, and then forward and away from the vehicle. After that, go ahead and press this down, turn it counterclockwise to unlock it, and lift it up and away from your face. Give it a quick inspection, set it aside. Now that the radiator cap's off of there, let's make our way underneath the front of the vehicle. We're going to go ahead and remove this plastic shield. Looking at the plastic shield, you're going to find a whole bunch of plastic push clips. To remove these clips, all you have to do is use a trim tool or even just use some cutters and carefully grab onto the center without actually breaking the plastic, and then just pull that down. Once it's unlocked, it should slide right out. There's going to be several that come along inside this area, and you're also going to notice that you have two inside of each of the wheel wells along this area, and then another one right here. Remove your shield. Now that we have that out of the way, we have a nice clear view of the bottom of the radiator. Over on the driver's side, you're going to find the petcock, which is considered the drain for the radiator. Now when I remove this, coolant's going to come out of it. I want to make sure I don't have anything underneath it that might get in the way and divert that coolant so it makes a mess. What we need to happen is this needs to be out of the way. We're going to try to divert this coolant directly into a receptacle so we can recycle it properly. Now with that said, you're going to try to find the mounting points for this wiring harness. There's one located right here. So I'm just going to use a pick. You can use a small screwdriver or whatever you might happen to have. Carefully get in between this area up along here and break it free. Once that's open, you can grab onto that wiring harness. We'll give it a little tug and just try to pull it aside so it's free and clear of this area. Now what you can see that I did here is I used a small piece of cardboard, and I just essentially made a little funneling area to divert everything away from this area so it doesn't make a mess everywhere. Now we can go ahead and open this up, keeping in mind that coolant will come out of it. You need to have hand and eye protection at all times and a collection receptacle under this area. Let's go ahead and carefully grab onto this. We're going to turn it counterclockwise, and we should start seeing some coolant come out. Now at this point, you can tell that I've drained out the majority of the coolant. It still has a little bit of a drip, but I'm not necessarily so worried about that. Let's just go ahead and close this off and we'll snug it up. Let's get our wiring resituated. Lock it in so it's secure. Now we can make our way back up here, and we're going to start removing our two 10mm headed bolts that hold down our thermostat housing. There's one over here, one right over there. Before you go ahead and break this free, make sure you have a nice collection bucket underneath here, just in case there's a little bit of coolant still trapped in the system. Now sometimes the thermostat will be stuck in this end or even in this end. Either way, just go ahead and grab onto it and remove it from wherever it is. There it is, friends. Once you have that thermostat out of there, it's going to be time to clean up the mating surfaces. Deep down inside this area right here is where that thermostat's supposed to sit. So you need to make sure it's clean and free of any debris, so when the seal is in there, it's going to seal up properly and you're not going to have a coolant leak in the end. Once you're sure the inner groove looks decent enough, let's continue on to the outer portion. As I'm scraping this, I'm trying to scrape it away from the inside of the engine. Some of it may make its way inside. It's not the end of the world, but less inside there is better. Once you've completed cleaning that area, clean up this one as well. When you feel confident that you've cleaned both of the areas, continue on by grabbing your brand new thermostat. Now it's time to get ready to install that new thermostat. Real quick, before we put it into the engine, I wanted to talk to you about it. Looking at this aspect of it, you can see a tiny hole. As you turn it around, you can see that it has a little bobble back there. Now this is actually a little air vent, and it's also kind of like a little bypass valve. You need to have that air vent facing up. If you were to look at the engine, you can tell that this base isn't perfectly flat. It's at a little bit of an angle. So essentially you just want to find the highest point, put that little hole in that area. We'll slide it right into position. Now we can line the housing up. We'll start in both of our mounting bolts. For these, you should not use any type of thread locker. Once they're snugged, torque each of these to 15 foot-pounds. This area right up along top here is considered a bleeder valve. If you found that you had air trapped inside your cooling system when you go to run it, this would be the area that you would want to come to. You can just go ahead and turn this counterclockwise until you start seeing some fluid coming out of this area in between the threaded area. Once that happens, theoretically, the air should be out of the system in this area. You can close it off and clean your mess. Now it's going to be time to put our engine cover back on. Pay attention to this area back here, this little piton. That's going to slide into this bracket that's located near the back side of the engine. Now once I slide it inside there, the next thing I want to do is bring the front down over this fill hole. We'll get it lined up. Take that filler neck, get it in position, and tighten it up. Let's make our way back underneath the driver's side of the vehicle. We'll just make sure that the petcock's closed and tight. Then we can start putting up our splash shield. For this, you want to make sure it goes up and over the ears that are underneath the bumper cover. After that, go ahead and put in all of your push clips. Okay, now it's time to fill our cooling system. Typically, it's a good idea to use some sort of a funnel if you don't have a specialty tool to be able to fill the cooling system. Now, when you fill this, you need to use the manufacturer specified fluid. You don't want to use green coolant. If you were to look at the overflow tank, you can see that it tells you to use a specific type, Dex Cool. It's kind of like a pink red. If you don't have access to that, you can also use a universal fluid. You just want to make sure that it's 50-50 mixed, so it's not complete concentrate. So all I'm going to do is just take some coolant. We'll pour it right in here. This is the universal coolant, so that's why it's this color. It's not green. It's actually yellow. We'll just go ahead and fill up the cooling system. Once it's full, we can go ahead and start it up and burp out any air in the system. Now the next thing that we want to do is go ahead and start up the vehicle. We're going to let it run for a while. What we need to happen is the cooling fans, they need to be able to turn on. Once those turn on, that's going to tell us that the thermostat's open, and we should have some hot heat blowing out the vents. At that point, there shouldn't be any more air inside the system, and we can go ahead and turn off the car, and then of course we can remove the coolant funnel. Once you're sure it's full and there's no air in the system, let's go ahead and reinstall the radiator cap and make sure it's nice and tight. Once the radiator's full, let's make our way over to the coolant overflow. You want to pay attention to the side along here. Essentially, you want to make sure it's up to the full cold line. That's that bottom line right there, and definitely not too much higher than the full hot line. Just get it anywhere in between. Cap it off when you're done.